Not every idea or tangent will fit into your book, but you don't always need to cut them completely. When you're writing an anthology-based book series, you have the freedom to explore any thread or idea you want in a standalone or a mini-series within your larger series. That's because anthology-based book series are book series that are centered around a place, world, or family. They are not tied together by a plot or by a main character. So today I want to talk about one such book series, The World of Valdemar by Mercedes Lackey, How to Read Like a Writer. Lackey's books are successful because she knows which characters and world details to focus on when. She doesn't try and shove everything into one book. She sprinkles it throughout her whole series. These are techniques you can learn and apply to your own writing. This is Ignited Ink Writing, a channel dedicated to helping authors like you transform your writing so it lingers with your readers. Because writing that lingers gets remembered and recommended to others. I'm Caitlin Burvey, editor and writer. Let's start with building Valdemar and your world. When writing a book series that's tied together by a world or place, instead of plot or character, remember that you don't need to summarize what happened in the last book in every book. Similarly, you don't need to provide every detail you've created about your world in every book. That would be overwhelming and boring. Instead, pay attention to the way authors like Lackey sprinkle in the details that readers only need to understand the current story. For example, in her standalone anthology book, It Takes a Thief, the main plot takes place in the city of Haven. So Lackey doesn't go off describing all of the other cities and countries she's created in her world. In that book, you only get information about Haven. That's the only city that she describes. But she takes it even farther than that. She doesn't shove all of Haven's information at you at one time. Instead, she only focuses on the components that the main character is experiencing in any given scene. So she's not putting backstory or unnecessary information where it doesn't belong. Here's an example of that main character wandering through a section of Haven, and how Lackey describes it. The narrow, twisting streets he followed were scarcely wide enough for a donkey cart. The tenement houses, 3 stories tall, including the attics, leaned toward the street, as if about to fall into it. There was not enough traffic to have worn away the packed, dirty snow heaped up against the walls of the houses on either side, and no incentive for the inhabitants to scrape it away. So there it would remain, accumulating over the course of winter until it finally thawed and soaked into the dirt of the street, turning it to mud. Notice how in this description, Lackey is focusing on the immediate setting. This is chapter 1. She's not going into all of the other streets of Haven or giving the reader a map of the city. Instead, she's immediately immersing the reader in that street, in that place, in that moment. What that does is it tightens her prose and it keeps the pace of her story and her scene moving. Yes, the reader's going to need more information than that later on, but in this scene, that's all they need to understand what's happening and to get an idea of Skiff's kind of predicament and class level within this society. As Skiff moves about the city, readers will get to learn more about Haven. So think about that for your own story. What do readers need to understand what's happening in this one moment? Only include that information. Don't go off on a tangent about other aspects of your setting when you don't need to present that information yet. The other advantage to limiting your world building in a given scene or book is that it doesn't box you in for later books. For example, if Lackey had described that section of Haven in her earlier books, and she needed to change something for this one to make the story work, she wouldn't be able to. But because she didn't do that, she left this section of Haven open. That gave her the space to be creative. So you don't want to box yourself in with unnecessary details, especially if you're getting super specific about an area of your city or world, that your characters don't actually go to. This is why Lackey was able to write so many standalones and miniseries within the overall anthology series of Valdemar. She didn't box herself in. So remember that for your stories as well. Next, I want to share populating Valdemar and your books. One thing Lackey understands is that the people of her stories are a part of that world. They're a part of the reason her readers are returning. So she makes sure to bring back some familiar and fan favorite characters in various books. In It Takes a Thief, Skip's story, most of the main characters, Skip included, are new. They haven't been seen in previous books. But many of the minor characters that Skip runs into are old characters that Lackey used before. One example of this is Alberich, the weapons master. He comes back again and again in books. Sometimes he's the main character, sometimes he's a side character, sometimes he's just mentioned. Also, remember your characters have legacies and ancestries, as well as their current timeline. One thing Lackey does is she covers a huge space of time within her world. We're talking generations here. You might be able to do a similar thing. If you have an idea for how your fan favorite mentor got that mentoring position, you might go back and write a prequel or a book that takes place earlier. You might also write the story of your character's children. So you don't have to limit yourself to one time frame. Now, jumping around in time only works for certain series. It might not be right for yours, but it works really well in Valdemar. Because anthology series are not tied together by plot or a main character, and they can cover generations, they can be read in different orders. You'll have some readers who want to read your series in the order it was published. You'll have other readers who might want to read it chronologically. And still some who have their own invented order that they think is best. One thing Lackey has is a huge fan base. If you Google what order to read her Valdemar series in, you'll see lots of different options, and fans are very passionate about this. That builds a community around her books and her stories. So when she releases a new one, these fans that are so into it, they've created ways of reading the series, are going to tell everyone they know, hey, the next book is out. So building that fan base helps with marketing. It's also just fun to have people love your work that much. The option to create your own order for reading an anthology series is part of the fun for fans. It gives them something to debate. So remember, when you're writing an anthology book series, you don't have to do it chronologically. And your readers are returning for your cast of characters as well as the place you have set your stories. Next, I want to share why an editor recommends Mercedes Lackey's Valdemar book series. One reason I love using Valdemar as an example of an anthology book series is because Lackey includes pretty much every option for a book series of that type. She has short stories, she has trilogies, she has standalone books that only follow the one character for that one book, she has co-authors, she has books she only wrote herself. She pretty much used every option available to an author with an anthology book series, and it worked for her. All of these pieces are fun and interesting to read. Now, this anthology book series is about an entire world. It's not just about a small town, so you might not be able to get as many books or different formats out of it if you're picking a smaller location or basing your books around a single family. When you're crafting your own anthology book series, you don't need to use all of these components like Lackey did, but remember, they are available to you. You do have other options besides just a bunch of standalones or groups of trilogies. This gives you the freedom to explore aspects of your story your fans might have fallen in love with. For example, if your fans love the technology of a certain alien race you created in your sci-fi anthology series, spend more books with that in it. If your fans have fallen in love with this one minor character, write a standalone about them. Anthology book series give you the freedom to really listen to your readers and what they love about your books and give them more of that. You still get to be creative as the author, but it keeps your fans happy, which means more people read your books. Like Lackey, you don't have to tie your book series together by an overarching plot or a single main character. You have more freedom than that, so get creative with your book series. What's your favorite anthology book series, and why? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And for more videos on book series and other aspects of writing, subscribe to Ignited Ink Writing, a channel dedicated to helping authors like you transform your writing so it lingers with your readers. Because writing that lingers gets remembered and recommended to others. I'm Caitlin Burvey, editor and writer. To find out more about me, go to www.ignitedinkwriting.com. There you will also find a guide to building strong settings, which will help you develop that world for your anthology book series. And now it's your turn to only reveal the details needed about your world in each individual book, and to bring back your fans' favorite characters in your anthology series to ignite your ink.